Sir, it is clear.
Yeah, it's clear. Fine. Okay, so I mean, we are still lagging the syllabus, but still we'll try to cover as much as possible. You know, and we are planning for Friday lecture, so maybe in that we will cover. Okay, so till now what we have done is, see, we have seen what Dongre sir has covered is, Dongre sir has covered the electrostatic part. Okay, electrostatics part. Okay, and what is the next part is the magnetostatics. Okay, magnetostatics, and then there is EM field. Okay. So in that, what we have is, in electrostatics we saw Coulomb's law. Okay, we saw Coulomb's law, we saw Gauss law, right? And in magnetostatics we'll see few laws. We'll have Biot-Savart's law, Biot-Savart's law, and we have Ampere-Circuital law. And this all things, like most of the students must have studied in their 12th, like in basic terminologies, like in terms of physics. But here what we deal is, we deal not only in terms of physics, we deal in terms of physical significance, we deal in terms of like vectors, you know. So that is what is basic difference between your 12th laws, which your law remains same, but the representation differs. Okay. So we'll study Ampere-Circuital law. And then in EM field, we'll study something called as, very important for your telecom engineering, which is Maxwell's equation. Okay. Very important. So anywhere you go, I mean, if you go to some telecom or in some RF domain for job, they will, in interview, they will definitely ask you questions on Maxwell equation. Okay. So even though it's a 100-year-old thing, okay, it's more than 100 years, these equations are more than 100 years old, but still it has significance, because the entire antenna, RF, microwave, all are based on this Maxwell equation. So it's kind of, Maxwell is kind of a pioneer when we talk of EM field. Okay. So he's like the father figure in EM. Okay, so Coulomb's law, sir has explained it, and you all have also solved numericals. Gauss law also you all have done. Okay. So how we move is, how we move. Okay. So in Coulomb's law, what you study is, you study the force between two charges Q1 and Q2, right? That was given by the Coulomb. And then you Gauss and then you extend that theory, and then you find the electric field intensity, right? You find the electric field intensity. Yeah. And how do you define electric field intensity, which is the force acting per unit charge? Okay. So you get electric field as a vector because force is vector. But what we find is, E bar is depending, it depends on medium. It depends on medium, right? It depends on medium. And what we need is, we need a quantity which is independent of medium. Okay. We need a quantity. Why it depends on medium? Because F, you might be remembering the Coulomb's law, F is K Q1 Q2 by R square, right? Where your K is a, which is what? K is what? 1 by 4 pi epsilon, right? K is 1 by 4 pi epsilon. So epsilon, the permittivity of the medium comes into picture. So your E bar also depends on the medium. Whereas if you see, we define something called as D bar, or electric displacement density, right? What is this? Electric displacement. You must have studied in Gauss law, right? Remember, students? Students can reply. Do you all know it? Hmm? Electric displacement. Yeah, someone wants to say something? electric displacement density. Now what you find is you define d bar as something epsilon into. So what happens because of that is this becomes, so E bar depends on epsilon and that gets cancelled because you are multiplying E bar with epsilon. And what we get is we get K Q by R square, right? So your D bar becomes independent of the medium, So that means even if the medium changes, D bar doesn't change. Well, E bar will keep on changing as the medium changes. Okay, E bar will keep on changing as the medium changes, but D bar doesn't change. So this is a very important conclusion of electrostatics. Okay. And then what we do is in electrostatics, someone wants to say something? Okay. So then what we do is we want to relate, we see, even this is a vector, right? This is a vector. And what we try always is we avoid dealing with vectors, right? We always try to avoid dealing with vectors. So we deal with something, we want to deal with something which is scalar, right? Because we can add them easily, we can easily add up them. And I mean, the mathematics is easy, right? So that is why we define a scalar quantity which is called scalar electric potential. What we define? We define something called as scalar electric potential, right? So, and once we know this is V, this is V. And once we know this scalar electric potential, what we can do is from this scalar, see, like mostly sir has given sums on multiple charges, right? Superposition. So what all you do? So what you do? E1 bar plus E2 bar plus dot dot dot, right? As many charge configurations, I mean, as many charges you add up, right? For line charge or surface charge, you keep on adding your E bar, right? Or maybe you'll have to add your D bar. Okay, D1 bar plus D2 bar. So this is a vector addition, which is very tedious. It is very tedious. So what we do is we have some option which is we deal with scalar, which is electric scalar potential. What is this? Electric scalar potential. Okay. So you can find V due to point charge, V due to line charge, and V due to surface charge you can find. And because this is a scalar, so you can directly add. You can directly add and you will get total. Because scalar addition is always easy, right? And from this, what we get is we get the net E bar. We get the net E bar. Okay. So if you see, if you want your E bar from for different charge configuration or different multiple charges, you will have to add up all of them, right? You will have to add up all of them, which is very tedious job because you have to find your unit vectors, you have to find vectors, unit vectors, right? All those things. Whereas in case of scalar, if you see, you can simply find the scalar potentials, okay, at all because of any charge configuration, and you can simply add up them. And from your net scalar potential, you can get E bar. Okay, you can get E bar. How do you get E bar? Which is minus negative gradient of potential. So you get E bar from the negative potential gradient. Negative. I hope, sir, I mean, you all have understood what is potential gradient. Sir has covered this in his introductory lectures. Okay. Negative potential gradient. Hai. So that is how we get our net E bar. So that is where the electrostatics, I mean, kind of ends, and we move towards the magnetostatics. Okay, we move towards the magnetostatics. So once you know E bar, now I mean in this also there is a division. This also there is a division. See, you have got E bar now. Now, can I directly say D bar is always epsilon times E bar? Can I always say this? No. There are two things here. Okay. So it depends on the medium. So is this law always valid? Is this law always valid? It depends on medium. So how does medium alters the D and E relation? How does the medium alter the D and E relation? So for that we'll see. Okay. So you all are getting, I mean, my screen, my audio, video, everything is okay. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just keep replying so that I get to know. Okay. So till now what we saw is we saw the how we saw electric displacement density D, which is epsilon E, and we saw D because it is product of epsilon and E bar, so it doesn't depend on the medium, right? And then we, for easy calculation, what we saw, I mean, in your all your calculations or the numericals on electrostatics, what we do is the easy way is you calculate the scalar potential because of multiple charges or different charge configurations, and you get the negative gradient, a negative gradient of the electric scalar potential, you get E bar. And once you get E bar, you get D bar, which is epsilon E bar. Now the question is this relation always true? This is always true, but is this always true? Okay. If it is true, for what situation, and if the situation changes, what happens? So basically, it depends on the medium. Okay. So how do we define the medium? Is basically okay. So when we talk of medium, okay, I am just kind of giving you the revisit of electrostatics, and then we'll move to magnetostatics. Okay. Because you all are already done electrostatics in detail, I'm just revisiting some fundamentals. So medium, when we say, we can have medium which is isotropic, we can have medium which is isotropic, and we can have medium which is anisotropic. We can have medium which is anisotropic. Now, what does this mean? Okay. So isotropic means what? Iso means what? When we say yeah, so to say something. When we say iso, it means same, and when we say tropic, it means direction. Okay. Means it's a negative thing. So when the medium characteristics, when the medium characteristic, now what are medium characteristics? So we have two medium characteristics, epsilon and mu. Epsilon and mu. Okay. Epsilon and mu. So this is permittivity, this is permeability, this is permittivity, and this is permeability. Okay. So this medium characteristic, if it remains same in all the direction, the medium characteristics remain same in all direction, we say the medium is isotropic. Well, if we move along x, if we move along y, and if we move along z, if my epsilon changes, if I travel along the medium, in the medium, okay, in different directions, if my epsilon changes, like I have ex, which is different in x direction, I have ey, I have ez. Okay. If they are not equal, if they are not equal, then the medium is anisotropic. Then the medium is anisotropic. Okay. Now what happens because of this is, so when we say d bar is epsilon e bar, what does this mean? That means my d bar vector, so this is like your, if your this vector is e bar, okay, your vector is e bar, my d bar is also in the same direction, right? My d bar is also in the same direction because this is a scalar. This is a scalar. Well, so this is applicable when this is applicable when we have medium characteristics which is same, which are same in all directions. So I will tell you how it happens. Okay. So is till here is everything clear about the medium? Any doubts, students?
No, sir.
Okay, good. So I will tell you what happens. So if you see, when I want to define, I will define something called as dx, dy, and dz is equals to, so my d is e, so ex, dy, and ez. Okay. And my epsilon will have in x direction, my epsilon will be xy direction, my epsilon will be xz direction. So this is how yx, epsilon yy, epsilon yz. Similarly, epsilon zx, epsilon zy, and epsilon zz. Okay. So this is how we define. So if my all these components are different, so I will define something d bar as epsilon e bar, but this e, this matrix e, epsilon matrix, if you see this epsilon matrix, this becomes a tensor. This becomes a tensor. So this is not scalar. This is a, I mean, it's a vector. It's a representation of vector, and we call this as tensor. Okay. Whereas, so this is for anisotropic. Why? Because every epsilon is different in all directions. So this is for anisotropic medium. Okay. Whereas if we say it is isotropic, if we say it is isotropic, so my dx, my dy, my dz will be what? So this will be epsilon xx, this will be 0, 0. This will be 0, epsilon yy, 0, 0, epsilon zz. That means, if you see what is happening, ex, ey, and ez. Okay. So what is happening is all the non-diagonal elements are becoming 0. Why? Because they are same in all directions. So this is for isotropic. And what we say is, even in those x direction, those y direction, and z direction, this is equals to epsilon. So all my epsilon in all directions, they are equal, and that is why the medium is isotropic. And in that case, if you see, all my dx will be epsilon ex, dy will be epsilon yy, ey. And so if I write dx, dy, and dz, if I find, and if I write d bar, then I can say it is epsilon. Epsilon will become common, and here epsilon becomes a scalar. Okay. So what will happen here is, in this case, in isotropic case, if your d bar, if your e bar is in this direction, my d bar also will be in this direction, because they are multiplied by a scalar. Okay, d bar is epsilon, e bar. Whereas in case of anisotropic, so e bar and d bar can be in different directions. They can be in different directions because this is a tensor. This is a tensor. Okay. It's kind of a vector. We call it as a tensor. So that means my E and D can be in different directions. They can be in different directions. Whereas if the medium is isotropic, that means epsilon is same for all direction. My d bar will be epsilon e bar. Here epsilon becomes a scalar, and d bar and e bar are in same direction. Okay. Okay. So this was just a kind of a revision of electrostatics. Now we'll move to magnetostatics. Okay. So in Coulomb's law, we saw the relation between force and charge. In Gauss law, we saw the relation between electric field intensity and so can you all tell me what is Gauss law? Anyone? Students, do you remember Vedant? Gauss law? Hmm?
Yes, sir.
क्या है Gauss law?
Sir, yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in Gauss law, sir, it was like there was one line charge which has some effect on a plane.
Gauss law is defined
And
for all
similarly,
charges, not only line charge. It is
no,
defined for
sir,
all charge
there was a
components.
single charge which has
Hmm?
an effect on a Sir, it says about the electric flux.
Yes, it deals
In
with
a
the flux, electric flux.
Sir, in a closed surface area which is equals to the charge enclosed divided by the permittivity.
Right. So Q by epsilon,
Yes.
epsilon gives you what? E bar dot ds square, right?
Yes. Yes.
है ना? Q by epsilon. This is what is Gauss law you have studied. And then you relate d bar with the E bar, right? And now we can move to magnetostatics. Lab. Yeah. So after seeing all this, we have also seen the effect of medium. Okay. We have also seen the effect of medium. So in case of iso and anisotropic. Now we can move to magnetostatics. Okay. So in magnetostatics, what we have is we have something. See, how do you see? Magnetostatics follows the same procedure as that of electrostatics. Like what we did in electrostatics, we say there is a point charge, and because of this charge, there is a field, right? Because of this charge, there is a field, and then we bring a test charge, and then we bring a test charge from somewhere, maybe from infinity, and then we see what is the force acting on that test charge. And whatever is the force acting on that test charge, that gives us the electric field intensity, right? Similarly, if see what was the source of the electric field? It was charge. The source of electric field was charge. Now, can someone tell me what is the source of magnetic field?
Magnet.
Magnet is fine, right? But see, yeah, you're right. But I mean, you're partially right. Why I will tell you. See, magnet. When we say magnet, magnet also has something which is called magnetization. Magnetization. And what I mean, after see till 19th till 20th century, what it was believed was, see, magnetic field is because of magnet. But after this, well, I mean, the early 20th century, what we when we have electron microscope and all those things came into picture, X-ray diffraction and all those things, the entire theory changed. And what was realized was the magnetic field. Okay, the magnetic field is not because of magnet. The magnetic field is not because of magnet, but what is happening within the magnet. Okay, and what is happening within the magnet, if same thing can happen outside magnet, that also can create a magnetic field. Okay, so basically the movement of charge, or we can say the uniform movement of charge. Okay, so here if you see, the charge is stationary. Whereas in magnet, what is happening is there is a uniform movement of charge. Okay, or there is something called as magnetic moment. Okay. And then after this, what do you say, those basic laws of like deflection, magnetic needle deflection, then they realized no, the source of magnetic field is what? Basically, it is the moving charge. The source of magnetic field is the moving charge. Okay. And if it is moving with a uniform velocity, that produces magnetic, right? So, and that is why, I mean, in the early 19th century, there was Oersted's experiment, right? You all remember Oersted's experiment, and that lead to understanding that not only magnet, but a current carrying conductor can also produce magnetic field, right? Not only magnet. So till 19th century, it was believed that only magnet can produce magnetic field. But then Oersted, after his experiment and many other consecutive experiments, okay, by other different scientists, and in the 20th century, after the Schrodinger and then this, the electron theory, as it evolved, the understanding of magnetism evolved. And so earlier what was thought was, I mean, then Maxwell also came into picture, and then he related both the electric and magnetic. So that we'll study when we study Maxwell equation. So the current carrying conductor, a current carrying conductor. Now, current I don't need to define, you all are electronic students. Okay? So current carrying conductor produces magnetic. Current carrying conductor is the source of magnetic. That means my moving, I mean, if there are moving charges with uniform velocity, they are the source of magnetic. Okay. Fine. Okay. So in electrostatics, what you saw was there was a stationary charge which was producing electrostatic field. And in magnetostatics, what you see is there is a moving charge which is moving with uniform velocity, and that is producing magnetic. Okay. And when we study electromagnetic field, so that means both are there. There is electric field as well as magnetic field. Okay. What we'll see is the accelerated charge. Accelerated charge produces both electric field as well as magnetic. So the accelerated charge produces both the electric and as well as magnetic field. Stationary charge produces electric field. Moving charge with uniform velocity produces magnetic field. And then a charge which is accelerated, I mean, series of charges which are accelerated, they produces both electric as well as magnetic field. And that is what we called as EM. If we radiate it, if we radiate that electromagnetic field through an antenna, what we get is the EM. Okay, so that was just your introduction of magnetic field and the EM field. Now we'll move to laws of magnetic field. Okay. Laws of magnetic. So like how we defined electric field, do you all remember? Electric field. Yasmin, Shara Yasmin, can you tell me how do you define electric field? You all have solved so many numericals. Yasmin, Shara Yasmin, are you there? No. Ritvik Murthy. How do you define electric field? E bar. Ritvik, how do you define E bar?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So, sir, electric field is an area where a charge is present.
But how do you define electric field intensity?
Intensity, sir.
You all have solved so many numericals. Okay, fine, no issue. Ritvik, can you tell me how do you define E bar? You all have solved plenty of numericals in your assessment and then tutorial. Still, see what we do, we bring a test charge so there is a capital charge Q and there is a field due to this charge, and we bring another test charge, right? We bring another test charge, and what we see, whatever is the force acting on this test charge, force acting per unit test charge gives us the electric field, right? Right? Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, so can we define magnetic field also in a similar fashion? Can we define magnetic field also in a similar fashion? So if my magnetic field is suppose H bar, so can I say if there is a current carrying conductor, if there is a current, so if there is a conductor, okay, there is a conductor which is carrying some current I, okay, and because of this, because of the current flowing, there is a magnetic field. Because of the current flowing, there is a magnetic field, and I denote it as H bar. So how will I find H bar then? So can I find like H bar? So whatever, if I bring what do you say, another magnetic, so see, test charge is what, it's a single charge, right? It's a single charge. So In magnetism, we don't have something called a single pole. In magnets, we have what? We have dipole, right? We have north, we have south. So in magnetism, we don't have a single pole, right? So I cannot bring a monopole. I cannot bring a monopole, and I cannot find the force acting on that monopole. I cannot find the force acting on that monopole because there is no monopole doesn't exist, right? So we don't define magnetic field in a fashion as we define electric field. Okay. And that is why I asked you all, how do you define electric field? So we don't define in the same fashion. Okay. So what we do is we define using something called as Biot-Savart's law. Okay. Define using Biot-Savart's law. So what the law says is Biot-Savart's law. We are talking of Biot-Savart's law. What the law says is if there is a current carrying conductor, okay. So suppose there is a current carrying conductor. Now because of this, there will be magnetic field, right? There will be magnetic field, right? This current is carrying a conductor. This conductor is carrying current. Because of this, there will be magnetic field. Okay, now how do we find at any point? Suppose if I take any point, how do I find the because of your static charge Q, there was electric field, and we brought another test charge, we got the E. But here H, we need to define in a different fashion. How do we find? So what we do is we take, so if this is a current carrying conductor, suppose we take a piece of current element. So I can say this length as DL, length as DL, and the current flowing through this is I. Okay. So my this element, I can call this as current element. I can call this as current element, which is of IDL. Current element IDL. Okay. And because of this, there will be magnetic field. And suppose because of this, there is a magnetic field. Suppose these are magnetic field. And if I take a point here, I want to find my H bar. I want to find my H bar. How will I find? So what we do is we connect. So from the current element, we draw a vector. Okay, we draw a vector. So this is the direction of your ideal bar. The direction of ideal bar is this. The direction of vector is this. I can say this as R cap, the unit vector. The point at which I am interested in finding H. Okay. So I'm interested in finding H at this point. So this is the direction of my ideal bar, and this is my direction of R bar, or I can say R cap. So what Biot-Savart gave is, so because of this current element, the magnitude of magnetic field intensity, okay, DH. Why? Because we are taking only a current element, we are not taking the entire conductor. So it is a, because of this current element, the magnetic field is DH bar. And that is given by the cross product of, so this is one vector, this is another vector. So this is ideal bar cross R cap, which is the unit vector along this vector. So this is vector R bar, unit vector along R bar is R cap upon 4 pi R square. Okay. So this is how the Biot-Savart gave the law of magnetic field intensity at any point, due to a current element, which is also, current element is infinitesimally small. Okay, infinitesimally small current element, DL, and that is given by this this cross product of ideal bar, which is in this direction along the current, and R cap, which is in the direction of the point from that current element. Okay, divided by 4 pi R square. R is the magnitude of the R bar. Okay, so this is Biot-Savart's law. Biot-Savart's law. So there is a derivation I will give you in writing. I will make you the notes available this entire derivation. So we'll not go into derivation. It's a very easy derivation. Okay. And so this is due to this infinite simile current element. And if I want, because of the entire conductor, simply what I will do, I will integrate dh bar, right, along the length. I will integrate along the length of the conductor. I will get h bar, right? I will integrate along the length of the conductor. I will get our magnetic field intensity at any point. Now if we talk in terms of the direction, what we can say? So our ideal bar. So if you all remember the right hand, right hand rule. You see, I will just draw here. Sir, 4 5 hours to where did it come from? Okay, so it comes from the derivation. That's what I said. We are not deriving here because it will take time. It's simple integration. I mean, I will give you in writing. I will derive it, and you all will understand how it comes. Okay. So this derivation I will give you in writing. Don't worry. Yeah. So right hand rule, if you all remember, okay, from your basic vector calculus, which sir must have covered in the introductory lectures. So right hand rule says what? If I have say a bar, if I have say a, I mean, I will go to the page. Okay. If this is a vector a bar, suppose, and this is vector b bar. So if I move from a to b, so this a bar and b bar are in the plane of the screen which you are seeing. They are in that plane. So where will my a bar cross b bar will be? Can anyone tell me? Where will be
perpendicular to upside?
Perpendicular, but in which direction? So this is your screen, mobile screen, which you are seeing. A bar and b bar are the two vectors in the screen plane, mobile screen plane. Where will be a bar cross b bar? Perpendicular, right?
Sir, up direction. Perpendicular to up direction.
Upward direction.
Upward, yes. Upward direction. So this will be in upward direction. So that means my a bar cross b bar, okay, will be in upward direction. Similarly, what will be my b bar cross a bar direction? If I go from here to
Downside,
here,
sir.
downside, right? So within the mobile, if you see within the mobile, right? So we say cross and we say dot. Okay, we say cross if it is upward, and we say dot, it is now inward to the plane of the screen. Okay, so if I take ideal bar cross r bar, I am taking what? Ideal bar cross r bar, r cap, or r bar say. Okay, so these are two vectors. So I am doing ideal bar cross r bar. So where will be the direction of this vector h bar?
Inward.
I am going from ideal bar cross r cap.
Sir, outside.
No.
Downward, sir.
Downwards, yes. So it will be downwards. And suppose if my point is here, I am interested in this point, and this is my r bar. Okay, this is my r bar. I am interested in this point. So what will be the direction of field at this point?
Upward.
Upwards.
I bar cross d bar, yes, upward, right? So if you see here, this is your ideal bar cross r bar. Ideal bar cross r bar. This h cap, is downward, and h cap is h bar is upward. So this is the magnetic field. Okay, this is the magnetic field, because if from your basic physics you know, from your basic physics you all know that this is a current carrying conductor. Okay, current I. So your magnetic field, right? This is how magnetic field. So this is the direction of B. We have defined H. We have defined H, which is called magnetic field intensity. Magnetic field intensity. like which is similar to your what do you say electric field intensity. Okay, but here one thing to notice in contrast to your E bar. Okay, so you have H bar, which is defined as magnetic field intensity. But there is one contrast here as if you compare it with E bar. In E bar, if you see, your E was depending upon the medium constant, or which is 1 by 4 by epsilon, right? So epsilon was there. So E was proportional to or inversely proportional to epsilon, right? I mean, it was depending on the medium, right? But whereas if you see in case of H bar, it doesn't depend on the medium. It doesn't depend on the medium. Okay, right? And in case of D bar, if you saw, D bar was what? For isotropic medium, D bar was epsilon E bar, right? So D bar was independent of medium. D bar was independent of medium and E bar was dependent on medium. So this was electric field intensity and this was electric field density or displacement density, electric displacement. Similarly, this is analogous to your H bar, and analogous to this, we will define another quantity which is called B bar. Analogous to your D bar, we'll define another quantity which is called B bar, which is called magnetic flux density. Magnetic flux density. Okay. So your B bar is what? Mu times H bar. Like your D bar is epsilon E bar. Okay. Similarly, your B bar is mu H bar. This is called magnetic flux density. Okay. But if you notice, your D bar is independent of epsilon. Why? Because this contains epsilon in the denominator and this gets cancelled. So your D is independent of medium. Whereas in case of magnetic field, this is independent of medium, but it gets multiplied with the medium characteristic or permeability, and B is depending on the medium, whereas H is independent of the medium. So this is a kind of contrast in electric and magnetic field. Okay. Okay. Similarly, if you see mu, like we defined, if you all remember, we defined E or epsilon, sorry, not E, we defined epsilon for anisotropic medium. We defined epsilon for anisotropic medium. Okay. Similarly, we can define mu. So if the medium is isotropic, we can say the mu is a scalar, and if it's an anisotropic, the mu is a tensor. Okay. So those things remain same. Okay. So that is how we define mu. Now, if we talk of units, of H, can someone help me in finding the unit of this H? What can be the unit? So this was Biot-Savart's law. Okay, this was Biot-Savart's law. We have another law which is Ampere-Circuital. We'll see in the next lecture. So this was Biot-Savart's law, which related the current element or the source of magnetic field with the point in the medium at which we want to find magnetic field intensity. Okay. So, can someone help me with the unit of this?
Sir, ampere per meter.
Very good. Per week. No, said
Ampere per meter, sir.
how? It's per week, na?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. How do other students can see what is the unit of this R cap? Can someone tell me? Unit of this R cap? It's a unit vector. What is the unit of unit vector? Unit of unit vector. Students, unit of unit vector. Chetan. Chetan, Ashwi.
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Sir, magnitude is 1.
Huh. What is the unit?
Sir, no unit.
Sir,
No unit. Very good.
No.
Very good. No unit. Okay. No unit. So what about this I ampere DL meter, right? Ampere meter, and this is constant, no unit, and this is meter square. So ampere meter per meter square, ampere meter per square, that gives you ampere per. So the unit of H, the unit of H is what? The unit of H is ampere per. Okay. Acha. Can someone tell me what is the unit of epsilon? Ashvi, what is the unit of epsilon? Hmm? Ashwi, are you there? Okay. Mic issues. Okay, fine. Meghna, can you tell me what is the unit of epsilon?
Sir, farad per meter.
Farad per meter. Ashwi also said farad per meter. Good. See, we have, not yet covered, which is the study of materials. I just introduced you the material. Okay. In today introduction, you saw, I just introduced you the type of materials, the mediums. Okay. The anisotropic medium, the isotropic medium. But there are much things other than this type of mediums. Okay. We will see the dielectric parameters. We'll see the capacitance when we talk of the dielectric medium. Okay. So there are a few other things to be covered, but then I am moving ahead with magnetism first. Okay. So yeah, so this was in terms of farad per. Similarly, can someone tell me what will the unit of mu in analogous to epsilon? Jai, what can be the unit of mu? Shreyash, Sonia, what can be the unit of mu? See, analogous to this, right? What will be the unit? If this is it, if we have a dielectric medium, which gets polarized and which develops the capacitance, okay, because of the electric field. So similarly, in case of the in case of the medium which has permeability mu, okay, which will get magnetized, So the dielectric medium gets polarized, and this will get magnetized. And what we can define is mu, the unit of Henry per meter, capital H per. So this capital H and this capital H are different. Okay, this is H bar, this is vector, and this is a unit. Okay. This is magnetic field intensity. Magnetic field intensity. And this is Henry per meter. So this is ampere per meter and Henry per meter. So it will be Henry ampere per meter square. We define this as Tesla, in honor of Tesla, or in honor of Weber. Okay, Henry into ampere, we define it as Weber per meter square. Okay. So it has a unit Tesla or it has a unit Weber per meter square. So B, the magnetic flux density. What is B? Magnetic flux density. Magnetic flux density has a unit Tesla or Weber per meter square, or we can say in terms of Henry ampere per meter square. Okay. So yeah, I think we can take a break here, right? So any doubts in this? We just introduced the Biot-Savart's law. We are not going into derivation. I will give you in writing how to derive. Okay. You don't have to just, make your concepts clear. Derivation things are easy. I will give you in writing. So we saw the Biot-Savart's law. We saw the direction. Okay. We saw the direction concept. We saw the grid, and we saw the right-hand rule of how to find the direction. So any doubts in this? No doubts? Okay. So we can take a break. You know, can resume at 10:08.